Okay, so number 6, and I realized that the pencil's a little hard to see, so I'm switching over to a red pen if that's okay with you guys. Just hopefully it's a little bit easier to see. Alright, so number 6 says there's an entry fee to a basketball game, and it's $4 for adults and $2 for students. On Tuesday, the school collected a total of $428 from 178 people. Part A says write a system that can be used to find the number of adult and student tickets sold in the game on Tuesday. And then B, we're going to solve and show all of our work. Alright, so I love these word problems because they're really, really easy as long as you know what you're looking for. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and simply circle all my money amounts. So we have $4, $2, and $428. Alright, so $4 for adults, $2 for students, gives me a total of $428. So my first equation, and of course you want to, if it's not obvious to people, label your variables. A is going to be number of adults. S is going to be number of students. Of course, it's always a good idea to make sure that you know what A and S stand for. Especially if you're not using like A and S, if you're using like X and Y or something like that, make sure that you label what means what. Alright, so now we can write our equation. $4 for adults, I'm going to write that as 4A, plus $2 for students, I'm going to write that as 2S, equal to $428. Again, my equation is money plus money equals my total money. Right? That's my first equation. And again, you notice how all of my units are in money. The next one is going to be people plus people equals my total people. Alright, so my total number of people in this case is going to be 178. So 178. And of course, the people that make up that 178 are adults and students. So A plus S equals 178. So my system here is 4A plus 2S equals 428. And A plus S equals 178. Now we can go down to part B and we can solve. So this is going to be 4A plus 2S equal to 428. Alright, so there's my system. I'm going to go through and I'm going to solve. So to solve, you just have to choose a letter and try to cancel it out. Again, I'm going to be using elimination the whole time. So I'm going to put a 1 in front of this. I'm going to put a 1 in front of that. To cancel out a 4A, I'm going to multiply the bottom by negative 4. Right? Because 1 times negative 4 is going to give me negative 4A. So if I multiply this, that's going to give me negative 4A. Negative 4 times 1S is going to give me negative 4S. And then negative 4 times 178. Good thing I have my calculator. Gives me negative 712. Alright, so since I multiplied this out, I'm going to go and put a line through this. I no longer need that equation. I'm going to take each of these and I'm just going to bring them down. So I'm just going to take that down. So I'm going to write that as 4A plus 2S equal to 428. Now I can add these together. Negative 4A, positive 4A, these are the things that are going to cancel out. Negative 4S plus 2S is going to give me negative 2S. And then negative 112 plus 48. Sorry, negative 712 plus 428. It's going to give me negative 282. 284, sorry. Now my last step is going to be to divide this by negative 2. So I get that S is equal to 142. That means that the number of students that attended that game were 142. So I'm just going to write this off to the side. S equals 142. And now I'm going to take that information, plug it back in. Of course, I always like to use the easier of the two equations. So out of these two, the easiest one is going to be A plus S equals 178. So I'm just going to rewrite that. A plus S equals 178. I'm going to plug in 142 in for S. And so now I have A plus 142 equal to 178. And now I'm going to solve for A. So I'm going to put a box around A. The reason that I always put a box around A is then if I wanted to, I can put my finger over it, and then I can ask myself, how do I get rid of, or how do I move that to the other side? How do I move a plus 142? The answer is going to be minus 142. So that's going to go away. 178 plus negative 142. It's going to give me 36. And my A comes down, so I have that A equals 36, or there were 36 adults. And so that is my final answer, that there were 36 adults and 142 students at the game. Alright, we can work out the other ones, 7 and 8. Number 7, and really these have all the exact same directions. It says you must show all work and all steps clearly and neatly in order to get credit on your test. Remember, all solutions should be written in the form x comma y. Alright, so first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write out where I'm going to put my point. So there's kind of like my little outline for my point. That's where my solution is going to be. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and box it in now. That is my final answer. Or at least that's where it's going to go. Alright, so now we look at the equation here. A lot of the time, some students immediately go to the parentheses and they try to put the parentheses through. I always encourage you guys, if you can be lazy, try to be lazy. Alright, so 3 and 2, that won't cancel. 4 and negative 4, that's going to cancel. And then we never really worry about the numbers. But the thing here that I notice is that I have a negative or a positive 4y and a negative 4y. And I know that if I add those two together, that's going to create a 0 pair. So I can actually skip the step where I multiply this by something, and I can just immediately add it together. That makes my equation a lot easier. So now I just have 3x plus 2x is going to give me 5x. Draw my line down my equal sign. 18 plus negative 8 is going to give me 10. And now from here it's just a one-step problem of dividing both sides by 5. And I get that x is equal to 2. Immediately I'm going to go over here and I'm going to put my point of 2 in there. Okay, my point is always xy. So I can plug in the 2. Now I go back up and I want to use one of my easier of the two equations. Even though the bottom one has smaller numbers, the top one is all positive, so I'm going to use the top. I'm going to plug in the 2 in for the x, so that changes to 3 parentheses 2. And then I just multiply this out. Technically you distribute 3 times 2 is going to give me 6. You notice how really all this just keeps coming down. I'm not really messing with the 18 or the 4y for now. And now, after you plug it in, after you multiply it out, now we go through and we solve. Anytime that you solve, you want to box in your letter. In this case, it's y. And I want to box it in with everything else. So the 4 and the plus, I box all that stuff in with the y. Now I look at the 6. To get rid of a positive 6, I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. Remember, if it doesn't have a sign in front of it, it means it's automatically positive. So to get rid of it, I'm going to do minus 6. This is going to go away. 18 minus 6 is going to give me 12. And then this is going to come down for y. And now my last step is going to be to divide by 4. So I get that y is equal to 3. And so I can plug that in there. Alright, so that was problem number 7. Problem number 8, again, exact same thing. I check my x's first. I have a 4 and a 3, that won't cancel, but then I look at my y's, and then lo and behold, once again, my y is coming through. If they pair up like this, negative and positive, then they're going to cancel each other out. So that means that I can add these together. We have 4x plus 3x, which is going to give me 7x. And then 11 plus 10, which is going to give me 21. Then I can go through and divide both sides by 7. And I get that x is equal to 3. Which I forgot to put my point, but let's go ahead and put our point up here now. Alright, so my first value is that x is equal to 3. Next I take that value, I plug it back in, and I check to see if I can solve. So again, I always choose the easier of the two. In this case, the bottom one's going to be easier, so I'm going to rewrite that. 3x plus y equals 10. 3 is, I'm going to plug it in for x, so we have 3 times 3 plus y equals 10. I distribute or I multiply. 3 times 3 is going to give me 9. So 9 plus y equals 10. And then I'm going to solve for y. Again, in order to solve for y, that means that I have to subtract 9 from both sides. 10 minus 9 is going to give me 1. Then the y is going to come down. So I have that y is equal to 1. Really quickly, let me show you guys how you would check this on your calculator just before I forget. So if I have my calculator, the way that I would check this is I would take the 3, take the 1, plug it in for x and y in the two original equations, and check to make sure that I get that number. So what I mean by that is instead of writing 4x, I'm going to write 4 parentheses. Instead of x, I'm going to put 3. Instead of minus y, I'm going to put minus parentheses. My y value was 1. Whenever I hit enter on my calculator, I should get 11 if I did this correctly, which is what I get. Then I would just go down to the bottom equation, do the same thing, plug in the x, plug in the y, check to see if it makes sense. So 3 parentheses 3 plus my y, or in other words, plus 1. Again, if I did this correctly, I should get 10. That's a really, really fast way to check on your test to see if you work these problems out correctly. Alright, so now we go down to the bottom one. On the bottom one, if I add the 5 and the x, that doesn't cancel, and the x and the 2y, that doesn't cancel. So now we actually have to go through and work these out. I'm going to go ahead and just put parentheses around both. The 5 is going to come down here. Technically, there's a 1 in front of this x. That's going to come up here. And if I can ever get 1, I'm going to leave it as 1. And I'm going to change the sign of the 5. You always put the 5 down here, or put that number down here, put that number up there, and then you have to change the sign of one of them. Okay? So now I'm going to go through and distribute. Really, 1 times all of these is going to be the exact same thing, so I'm just going to write 5x plus y equals 14. On the bottom, we have negative 5 times 1, which gives me negative 5x. Negative 5 times 2y, which gives me negative 10y. And then negative 5 times 10, which gives me negative 50. Draw my line down my equal sign, even though it's not nice and pretty. And then I add these together. Alright, 5x plus negative 5x, this is going to cancel. Y plus negative 10y, technically there's a 1 here, so you have 1 plus negative 10, which is going to give you negative 9. And then 14 plus negative 50, which is going to give you negative 36. And of course, anytime that you're working these with me, if you can, try to type these into your calculator or into your phone or somewhere. Just double check the math. That way when you get to the test, you're used to doing that math step. Alright, and then the last step is going to be to divide by negative 9. Negative 36 divided by negative 9 is going to give me positive 4. So again, my point, this time I'll put my point down here. This time we found our y value first. So make sure that you're putting it into the right spot. Then we take that 4, we plug it back in. I think the easier of the two equations is the bottom one, so we'll do x plus 2y equals 10. I'll plug in the 4 in for the y, so that's going to become x plus 2 times 4 equals 10. 2 times 4 is going to give me 8. Box in my variable that I'm missing, and then solve. So x, the way that we get x by itself is we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. 10 minus 8 is going to give me 2. X comes down, so we have that x is equal to 2. So my solution to this one is going to be 2/4. Alright, I think we can finish 10 and then probably do one more video and then we would be done. Alright, so problem number 10 says, what is the best estimate for the solution of the system represented on the graph shown? Alright, so obviously one of the keywords here is best estimate. That means it may not be perfect. It also means that your answer might be a little bit different from mine. That's okay. On the test, it should be pretty obvious which one it is. Alright, what I'm going to do with this is I'm kind of going to make a makeshift ruler really quick. Alright, so I just kind of folded a sticky note, made a ruler. We have to go back to when we talked about graphing, which was a few weeks ago. But anytime that we're talking about a solution to a system, really that's just talking about, if we're looking at graphing, it's where the two lines cross. Which right now those two lines are not crossing. But since this line has an arrow, and this line has an arrow, that means that that line's going to keep going, this line's going to keep going. So eventually they will cross. So what I want to do is I just want to take my straight edge and extend this line so that they do cross. Extend this line. Something like that. Alright, so if I extend this line, now I can kind of guess and see where they would cross. Like I said, your answer might be a little bit different from mine, but mine, it looks like whenever I extended my lines, it looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 1, 2, 3. So my solution looks like it's at 6, 3. You might want to check yours, and I think you might even have a different graph than me. I'm not 100% sure, but if you have a different graph, then obviously you just extend your lines, and then you write down your guess. And of course, my solution is where they meet, which is that point right there. That's the point that I labeled.